our guest speaker, who is Keith Eddins, a professor at the University of Oregon, an instructor at the University of Oregon Law School. And he teaches in a lot of different areas, such as diplomacy, international security, arms control, NATO, Russia, the former Soviet Union, and Central and Eastern Europe. So clearly a lot of different areas. And he also worked as a foreign service officer for the US Department of State for 30 years and worked all over the world. But the reason that we've brought him here today is because on top of that, he's also an amazing coach of speech and debate. And he's coached countless successful high school debaters at the local level, the state level, and the national debater. And he will be able to give us just a very good explanation of why debate is so important.
I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you in the SAIL program. I'm going to put up a little slideshow here, but I'm mostly going to use it just for background. Let's see. Nope, I'm doing something wrong here. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So in talking today, Noah had asked me to talk about the power of oral communication. And I think it's a critical point because I spent a 30-year career as an American diplomat overseas, much of that time overseas. But whether I was overseas, whether I was in Washington, and since I've been out of the diplomatic corps, I've participated in American government at the state and local level, a little bit at the national level. And communication is such a critical skill that I got back into the high school debate world a few years ago, and Noah was very kind in her introduction. I've had some success as a coach, but the most important thing is not the trophies you win. The most important thing about participating in organized speech and debate is the skills you develop. Anyone recognize this guy? Any of you movie buffs out there?
James Dean.
James Dean, right? James Dean was a speechy. He was a participant in speech and debate in high school and actually finished 6th at the National High School Tournament in 1949. I'm guessing a lot of you don't recognize Barbara Jordan. If you're a history buff, you might. Representative Jordan was one of the leaders of the effort to remove President Nixon from office in the early 70s after the Watergate era. Barbara Jordan was a debater, and as you see in her obituary, she died way too young. The headline emphasizes her voice, her ability to communicate. Barbara Jordan, as a debater, was famous for leading a Texas Southern University, one of the historically Black colleges and universities, in a winning debate against Harvard in the early 1950s. The speech, the ability to communicate was one of the things that Representative Jordan picked up as a high school and college debater and took it to the national stage. Debate can be used for good, as I believe Barbara Jordan used it, and as the Black Panther used it. Chadwick Boseman was 8th in original oratory at the National Speech and Debate Tournament in 1995. Debate can be used for evil. Some of the skills you picked up can be put to what I would consider not so good use. I know Noah and the folks at SAIL probably don't want me to get too political on this, so I'm not putting up some of the evil debaters who have used the skills they picked up in high school debate to bad effect, Ted Cruz. But I would simply say that one of the things that you can pick up as a participant in speech and debate, not just debate, but speech activities as well, are what are often referred to as the 4 C's: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Now, Noah, in her presentation a moment ago, got into some of the critical thinking areas, because you cannot be a good debater, you cannot be a good original oratory speaker or informative speaker or extemporaneous speaker without being able to think critically about an issue. And one of the things debate does is it makes you think about both sides of the issue, because organized speech and debate, organized debate, expects you to be able to defend both the affirmative and the negative. You have to both affirm the resolution and negate the resolution. So that's critical thinking. You have to do it in a way that's persuasive. That's the communication side of it. You have to collaborate. You're part of a team, whether you're a 2-person team doing one of the several different forms of high school debate, or whether you're part of the bigger team that represents your school, where you're sharing information and ideas with your colleagues. Much like a basketball team or a football team, you're engaging with the other members of your school to come up with better ways to do things. And you have to be creative. You have to come up with ways to look at an issue that someone else may not have. Because debate is a game, it's a sport, it's a competitive activity. You're trying to win your round, right? So you're trying to come up with new ways of looking at an issue that the other team might not have conceived of, might not have thought about, might not be prepared for. You're looking for a fair and honest competition, but at the same time, you're looking for an advantage. So it encourages creativity. Now, none of these 4 C's exist independently of each other. They're all part of the package. If I were better at creating slideshows, I would have shown with a Venn diagram how all of these things overlap. But let me just offer a couple of thoughts on that area. Anyone know? Well, it's got her name here. Justice Sotomayor, Sonia Sotomayor, was a debater at Cardinal Spellman High School in the early 1970s. Sotomayor is now a Supreme Court justice, where she regularly, and she will tell you as much, if you've read her biography, which I have, she devotes multiple pages, I think a whole chapter, to how high school debate helped shape her ability to think critically and communicate clearly and effectively, which served her well to get to college, to get to law school, to go from law school to a district attorney's office, and eventually to become a judge, ultimately rising to the level of the Supreme Court. She will tell you that these skills, these thinking and communication skills she got in debate helped her in her career. You guys recognize Elizabeth Warren? This is Warren on the left, is Warren when she was Liz Herring, as a champion high school debater in Oklahoma. This is on the right is Elizabeth Warren a couple of years ago, just eviscerating Mike Bloomberg on the debate stage during the presidential debates. She obviously didn't get the Democratic nomination, but she was certainly the best and most effective communicator in those debates. But Warren also points to the role that high school debate, not just debate, but speaking, extemporaneous speaking, played in her ability to communicate, her ability to think critically, her creativity. Warren, when she was a high school senior, debated a topic that she subsequently introduced legislation on in, 40 years later as a US senator. But I know that part of the discussion here today is about social change, and I don't think there's any better example of folks in speech and debate having an impact on the country, not that they've been successful yet, than the kids from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward County, Florida. You may recognize these kids because they're, and I use kids, I don't mean that pejoratively. These were high school students who were thrust on the national stage a couple of 3 years ago when a number of their classmates were murdered in at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. These kids, these students were thrust on the national stage, and a lot of people were saying, man, they're articulate. How does every kid from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School seem to be able to appear on television without nervousness, with a focus that is not what you'd expect of a high school student? Well, I'm not going to say it's the only reason why, but the Broward County School District requires speech and communication and debate courses of all their students starting in middle school. Shortly after, in the June after the February shootings at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, the national debate tournament was hosted down in the Fort Lauderdale area near Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And I had a chance to meet some of these kids, not the 3 who are shown here, but some of the others, and also talk to the assistant superintendent of the school district. And they all talked about the power that speech courses, that competitive speech and debate gave them, the ability, the confidence to go out and talk to the media and advance their efforts. And then I would point to 2 other former speech and debaters who I almost competed against. I competed for a team in Mississippi, and we competed on a Southern circuit. And we regularly hit teams from Nashville that Oprah Winfrey was on, but she had been, her school, but she had been there a couple of years before I was a debater. And then we regularly competed against teams that Congresswoman Sewell was on from Selma High School in Selma, Alabama. I knew her coach actually very, very well, Billy Tate. But there again, examples of folks who took the skills, the training, the confidence they built as a speaker, as a debater, and put it to good use. Now, Oprah Winfrey has done it in the entertainment industry, but she's obviously ventured outside of entertainment. Congresswoman Sewell has been one of the most effective young members of the party, the only Democrat in the congressional delegation from Alabama, but someone who has found a way to be an effective speaker for not just her own constituents, but all the constituents in Alabama, many of whom feel unrepresented by some of their representatives. But my point here with showing you just a few examples of people who have been speechies or been debaters competing in all sorts of different events on their respective high school circuits is that debate helps you grow as a person. I heard Noah say that it's not only about oral communications, it's about written communication, because if you don't know how to put together an argument orally, you're not going to be able to write an essay. You're not going to be able to write a term paper, a research paper. And those are skills that will help you throughout life, whether you're pursuing a dream of going to college, an effort to go to college, or whether you're out of college and working in any kind of job. The ability to communicate orally and in a written way is incredibly effective. I'm going to stop there. I want to answer questions, but before I do, I just want to say two final things. My understanding of the program today is that a lot of you may represent students who are considering college as first-generation college students. I've known a couple of debaters who had never even conceived of going to college until they realized through speech and debate activities that they were just as competent and able as anyone else in the state of Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, or in some cases in the nation. And I know that it was an activity that helped them, gave them that self-confidence to be able to pursue their dreams. And I encourage you to think about that. The second and final thing, if any of you are not in your high school speech and debate program in Oregon, and I think most of you are from Oregon. I can't really extend this beyond Oregon, but I can try. But if any of you are interested in participating in your high school speech and debate program, and you have difficulty identifying it, shoot me an email. There's my email address. Shoot me an email and I will help put you in touch with the coach at your high school if there is one. I can't promise you that every high school in Oregon has a speech and debate program, because they don't, but a lot of them do. And I can at least, I'll do my best to put you in touch with a coach. I'd ask you to try first, but if you have difficulty finding one, let me know and I'll work that out. Okay.
Thank you so much, Keith. That was amazing.